collect more taxes, and buy meat for my orcs, I actually turned a century-old abandoned wetland into prime farmland. But right after finishing, the noble next door shows up to freeload. You see, even though the Maria's wetlands were abandoned for 100 years, administratively they were split in two. The northern half belongs to Viscount Lacona, and the southern half belongs to Baron Frontelot. It was obvious. This guy waited until all the hard work was done, then waltzed over to claim ownership, hoping to steal this fertile land without lifting a finger. But hey, I've read the novel. How could I not see this coming? According to the Kingdom's Land Law, Article 321, specifically the exception for reclaiming barren lands, any land abandoned for over a century with no residence or farming is officially classified as barren, and the ownership of barren land goes to whoever reclaims it. There are 4 criteria for reclamation. Number 1, capital and labor must be invested with a clear purpose. Number 2, it must support habitable buildings. Number 3, it must support long-term farming. And finally, number 4, the land must yield at least 1 harvest. Then, I casually yanked an onion right out of the dirt. Viscount Lacona was completely speechless. He was fuming, but there was absolutely nothing he could do. Standing nearby, Havar was in total shock, realizing that planting the seeds early was just a trap to swat away a pest like Lacona. I gave Lacona a cheeky smirk. Well, you brought quite the crowd for your first visit, and even got to witness the very first harvest of the Mares farmlands. I really don't know how to thank you, so I'll waive the admission fee. Take this onion as a little welcoming gift. No, really, I insist. And now, get the hell off my land. Lacona was absolutely livid, but he had no choice but to leave with his tail between his legs. The moment he was gone, the farmers erupted into thunderous cheers. Hearing the noise, I instantly spun around and glared at them. Am I paying you to stand around and watch a show? Get back to work. Once the water wheels were installed and tested against heavy rain, the Mares Wetlands Reclamation Project was officially complete. Everyone's approval ratings shot up, which meant it was time for the next phase. Meanwhile, seeing the Mares lands turn so fertile made Viscount Lacona incredibly jealous. After all, half of that land used to be his. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, and he started brewing some incredibly shady schemes. A few days later, I woke up with a splitting headache, and weirdly enough, Havar was having the exact same symptoms. I instantly knew something was wrong. Wait, don't tell me. Hell, a noble poisoned my territory's water supply to steal my land, so out of anger, I destroyed his business and forced him to sign his life away. And the spark that started it all? This morning, Harval and I both woke up with a splitting headache. To get to the bottom of this, I went out to ask around, and found out that every household in the territory was suffering from the exact same symptom. The cattle ranchers told me the cows had stopped drinking water since yesterday, which got me thinking, the water supply must be the problem. Even though I've read most of the intel about this world in the novel, ever since the ant monster incident, I realized there's plenty of stuff happening here that was never written in the book. For example, after digging around, I found out the Lacona territory's main source of income is a secret dyeing technique, all thanks to a special Ladona fruit native to their land. Meanwhile, Lacona's little lackey was busy negotiating with the Baron. Just as I suspected, they were the ones polluting our water by dumping their toxic dye waste. And now this guy shows up, demanding the Baron hand over half of the Merrow land, or else they'll keep dumping the waste. And they weren't even scared of the law, because a standard lawsuit takes at least 2 years to get a verdict. The lackey smugly spat out, "Your economy is already tight, now you're out of water, and you'll have to pay legal fees. Can you even survive 2 years?" The furious Baron told him to get the hell out, swearing he wouldn't give up a single inch of the land his son and his people had worked so hard to cultivate. That's when I made my grand entrance, slamming the door open and catching the lackey right in the face for an instant KO. The pissed-off lackey wanted to bet his knight's honor and duel me. I was just looking for a punching bag anyway, so I hit him with a lightning-fast 5-combo shovel strike, beating him until he was begging on his knees. Beaten black and blue, the goon crawled back to his territory and reported what happened. But Lacona actually said it was a good thing he got beat up, because he could spin it as unprovoked noble violence, which would drag the lawsuit out even longer. But I didn't care about that at all, because I already had a plan. First things first though, we needed drinking water. After building a massive reservoir, I had Little Hama transport the uncontaminated water over. Next up, I started constructing a brand new water supply system, and I was going to build an aqueduct all the way from Lake Capua in the eastern mountains, straight to our territory. A few months later, Viscount Lacona furiously demanded to know what the hell I had done. I casually cleared up his confusion. Well, since your toxic waste polluted our water supply, Viscount, we had no choice but to divert water all the way from Lake Capua. During this process, I dug a trench from the lake all the way here, which really put my workers through the ringer. A desperate and impatient Lacona snapped, "Cut the crap. I'm asking what you did to my dye workshop? See, you're just too impatient. Let me finish." We ran into a massive ravine halfway through, so we had no choice but to build an aqueduct bridge. To gather the limestone needed for the build, we had to do some explosive blasting, and as a result, we accidentally scattered a bunch of limestone right into the riverbed below. Lacona angrily asked what any of that had to do with his dye workshop. I gave him a wicked smirk and said, "That river is your workshop's water supply, and the limestone in the water, well, it's going to turn all your fabrics the color of crap." Humiliated and furious, Lacona threatened to sue me in the noble court. I calmly told him to go right ahead. "Didn't you say the court takes 2 years to reach a verdict? I just wonder if anyone will even remember your products by then." Now Lacona was truly panicking. After all, that dye workshop was the only pillar holding up his territory's economy. I stood up and said, "Well, since I've cleared up your confusion, I'll be taking my leave." Lacona threw a pathetic tantrum, screaming about all the people he knew in the royal palace, and swore he'd make me pay double for his losses. I couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge him. I just waved and walked away. Harval didn't understand why I provoked him like that. If he really dragged it out in court, wouldn't it end up costing us more money? I just told Harval to wait and see who ended up taking the biggest hit. Sure enough, a few days later, Lacona showed up at my door, begging on his knees. He threw threw away his pride and begged me to save his dye workshop, because if things kept going like this, his territory would go completely bankrupt. With a wicked grin, I pulled out a contract I'd prepared in advance. Just sign right here, and I'll send my men to build a water channel for your workshop. Lacona read the contract and instantly turned to stone. This wasn't a contract. It was a contract for indentured servitude, and one without an expiration date at that. Even after he was gone, his descendants would be bled dry forever. And how could I let him off with just a simple slap on the wrist? If I could turn it all into cash, I would wring the cash out of his very capillaries, bleeding him of every single ounce of value he had. Giant beasts were swarming the trade waters, completely tanking the territory's maritime business. The local lord's brilliant plan? Build a bronze mermaid statue in the deep sea to scare it away? A totally bizarre but highly lucrative gig like that? There was no way I was passing it up. So, after milking the nobles dry by fixing their aqueducts, I packed up and headed for the trade city of Kramer. Because I built the very first aqueduct on this continent, I've already made quite a name for myself as a master architect. Lord Kramer caught wind of my work and invited me over to build this statue for him. It took us an entire winter just to reach Kramer. But when we finally arrived, the Count gave us a super warm welcome. Well, he gave Havel a warm welcome. He totally ignored me and walked straight up to him. Turns out, he thought Havel was the architect. The second I tried to correct him, Kramer whipped around and roared, "Insolence! How dare a mere servant interrupt a conversation between nobles?" To make matters worse, the system hit me with some ruthless mockery. Haha, looks like a servant. Honestly, I just wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Once we cleared up the misunderstanding, Kramer laughed and apologized for being so rude. Havel stood behind him, practically busting a gut trying not to laugh, while I just stood there, completely dead inside. But then, Kramer delivered a critical hit. But really, then, how do you have such an NPC face? I really wanted to punch his lights out right then and there. But Count Kramer is actually a pretty important character in this novel. The Count went on to explain their current dilemma. Their trade volume had been shrinking for years, all because a giant beast called the Gigot Titan started hanging out in the waters just outside the port. Even though the thing wasn't actually attacking ships, its sheer presence was absolutely terrifying. Hearing this, I remembered the plot of the novel. The book mentioned Kramer went into decline because they couldn't fight off a sea creature, but it never gave the exact details. Count Kramer said he flipped through countless ancient texts looking for a way to drive it off, and found out that mermaids, the strongest warriors of the sea, are a symbol of absolute terror to the Gigot Titan. So his big idea was to build a bronze mermaid statue right in the middle of the ocean, hoping the Gigot Titan would take one look and run for the hills. But he had to scrap the idea, because filling in the ocean to make land for a statue would make the water too shallow for ships to enter the port. After hearing him out, I totally got the picture. I told him I could build the statue for his territory without affecting the shipping lane's depth, because for someone armed with modern construction knowledge, this was a piece of cake. Throw in some anti-slip piles and a caisson, and it's totally doable. After officially taking the gig, Havel and I headed out to sea. I took a massive breath and dove straight into the water to survey the seabed, but I completely forgot it was winter. I nearly froze my ass off. Seeing me absolutely miserable, Havel was grinning from ear to ear. I demanded to know why he looked so damn happy. Havel just shrugged and said it was his first time realizing that watching someone else suffer could bring him so much joy. Jerk. Still, he couldn't wrap his head around how I planned to lay a perfectly straight foundation underwater, unless I planned on using magic. I just smirked with total confidence. Maybe it is magic, I told him. A special kind of magic, called cement. After wrapping up the survey and heading back to shore, I was suddenly stopped by a stunning blonde beauty. Seeing her, my cheeks instantly got hot. Could it be? Is my romance arc finally starting? Nope. The love letter wasn't for me at all. She was giving it to Havel. Havel just sighed, took the letter, and casually shoved it in his pocket. Seeing him take it, Christine instantly turned bright red and ran off. I immediately snapped. Hold up, you bastard. That nonchalant attitude of yours really pisses me off. How are you so damn used to stuffing love letters in your pocket? Havel looked genuinely shocked. Wait, have you really never received a love letter before? In that moment, a single tear rolled down my cheek, but then Havel hit me with the killing blow. I don't really know what to say to you, but hang in there. That was it. I absolutely lost it and started bawling. In my head, I was sending my warmest regards to his entire family. I instantly turned my grief into motivation and threw myself entirely into my work, convincing myself I wasn't jealous at all. Because I'm gonna be rich. I am going to make so much money. Suddenly, someone opened the door and broke my focus. I was about to blow a fuse, but then I saw it was Count Kramer. I instantly switched to suck-up mode. Oh, my apologies, Count. I was just completely lost in my work. Turns out Kramer was here to deliver materials. The Count explained that everything else was ready, except for the volcanic ash. That got me thinking. Volcanic ash is the absolute key ingredient for Roman cement, and the biggest advantage of Roman cement is its durability. Buildings made by the Roman Empire are literally still standing 2,000 years later. Count Kramer explained that volcanic ash wasn't impossible to find. It was just way too far away. A round trip to the nearest volcano would take at least 6 months, and he just couldn't wait that long. I told the Count not to worry and that I had a backup plan. I figured if Roman cement is off the table, we'll just go with Portland cement. My only worry was that while I knew the basic recipe, I didn't have the exact scientific specs. It meant I had to rely on endless trial and error. But even after trying hundreds of different mixing ratios, the cement still wasn't getting hard enough. Seeing how stressed and burned out I was, my 3 little buddies kept buzzing around my ears, begging me to go outside and take a break. Annoyed and completely out of patience, I totally snapped and yelled at them. But right then, I suddenly remembered my little dog from my past life. He was the very last piece of family I had left by my side, and I didn't realize just how much he meant to me until he passed away. I really regretted not playing with him just one more time. The realization hit me like a truck. I immediately pulled the 3 little guys into a massive hug. Compared to this research, you guys are what really matters. Walking down that quiet, moonlit path, I couldn't help but think about what a massive jerk I'd been. Because everything had been smooth sailing up until now, I took them completely for granted and ordered them around like machines. Looking back, I was being an absolute idiot. I crouched down and thanked my little buddies from the bottom of my heart. We've only made it this far because I had you guys with me. Suddenly, a system alert chimed in. Your fantasy partners have felt your true sincerity. Partner enhancement feature is now unlocked. I had no idea these little guys could even be upgraded. Little Belle immediately chimed in, asking to be upgraded first, and Little Bro and Little Hama totally backed her up. Since they all agreed, I went ahead and initiated the upgrade for Little Belle. The next second, Little Belle radiated this blinding golden light and floated into the air, and the fully upgraded Little Belle unlocked the exact skill we needed right now, Volcanic Eruption. Absolutely hyped, I dragged Havel to the back mountain to test out Little Belle's new skill. With a massive boom, the eruption actually created real volcanic ash. I was screaming with excitement, telling Havel to look, but he didn't cover his ears in time, and the blast left him temporarily deaf. Seeing a golden opportunity, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "You're really ugly!" Havel, completely unfazed, just calmly replied, "No matter how ugly I am, I'll never be as ugly as you, young master. Whatever. I'm the bigger man here, so I let it slide. Now that we had the final ingredient, it was time to officially break ground. Step 1. Craft a giant diaper capable of filtering volcanic ash and strap it straight onto Little Belle. Next, install 5 layers of mesh screens onto the back of the diaper to catch the ash. Finally, order Little Belle to use Volcanic Eruption. A colossal fart echoed across the entire territory. But hey, we collected plenty of volcanic ash. Count Kramer was absolutely blown away. He realized I wasn't just some ordinary architect, I was using unheard of skills and actual summoning magic. He even decided that once this was all over, he was going to send a detailed report straight to His Majesty the King, because he firmly believed that burying a talent like mine in some tiny village was an absolute waste. With all the materials gathered, I started building the caisson to hold the cement. We dropped the finished caisson into the ocean, and then had Little Hama literally drink all the water trapped inside it. The final step was tightly driving the anti-slip piles into the bottom of the caisson. After pounding in a wooden pile, Havel actually asked when the next batch was arriving. I just stared at him, totally bewildered. Why are you being so obedient this time? You're not fighting back or complaining about how a noble knight shouldn't be doing hard labor? The ever-prideful Havel froze, instantly realizing his mistake. You're right, I am a knight. Why the hell am I hammering wooden posts? He dropped the hammer and turned to walk away, but I already knew exactly how to play him. I let out a deep sigh. Well, if you don't swing that hammer, I don't make any money. If I don't make money, we can't pay off the territory's debt. The stress will make me collapse, which will break the Baron's heart. And if the Baron falls ill, the Baroness will definitely get sick from worry too. So, Sir Knight, won't you please protect our family? Havel just stood there, completely defenseless against that massive guilt trip. He had no choice but to willingly get back to the hard labor. With Havel thoroughly manipulated and working hard, the steel skeleton of the caisson was finally finished. The last step was pouring in the all-important cement. Once it cured and we stripped away the caisson, our artificial ocean foundation was completely finished. Count Kramer was still pretty skeptical about whether this foundation could actually support the weight of a giant bronze mermaid, but he promised that if it really worked, my paycheck would be heavily padded. A few months later, the mermaid statue was finished, and the foundation handled the weight perfectly. The Count was thrilled, and threw a massive maritime celebration banquet for all the wealthy elites. During the party, the Count gestured toward us. "Everyone, look here. This young man is the MVP who helped us build the mermaid statue." Naturally, every single guest rushed right past me to shake Havel's hand. I already knew this was going to happen, so I definitely wasn't jealous. Because honestly, I'd take a fat direct deposit over a round of applause any day of the week. Still, the look on Havel's face was really pissing me off. He looked so damn wrong. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not giving you any pity." But little did I know, absolute disaster was quietly creeping up on us. Because the Gigot Titan didn't actually fear mermaids. It was absolutely enraged by them. The bronze mermaid statue that cost a fortune to build didn't just fail to scare off the behemoth. It sent it into an absolute rage. Deep underwater, this terrifying monster is opening its abyssal maw, charging straight for the celebration banquet. But right now, Havel is just chilling on the deck, sipping red wine. Suddenly, he senses something approaching from the distance, and it's moving fast. I ask him if he can tell how big it is. Havel says it's probably even bigger than the giant form of our little buddy. I immediately realize we're screwed, thinking, this has to be the Gigot Titan closing in. I rush over to Count Kramer, whispering that the Gigot Titan seems to be approaching fast, and tell him to evacuate everyone immediately. The Count doesn't really buy it. He asks Knight Gino, who's standing nearby, to use his senses and check if anything's off in the ocean. Gino is currently leveling up from High Knight to Sword Saint, so his senses are incredibly sharp, but he doesn't detect anything weird in the water. I'm speechless. Our guy Havel definitely has better perception. He is the main character after all, just as I'm racking my brain trying to convince them. Count Kramer suddenly speaks up, telling me not to worry too much. He says the Gigot Titan hasn't been anywhere near here in years, and there's zero reason for it to suddenly attack. I look at him dead serious and say, well, maybe it has a reason now. Then, I point straight at the bronze mermaid statue out at sea. Count Kramer instantly pieces it together. He immediately screams at everyone to sail away from the statue, but the Gigot Titan is getting closer and closer. Slowly raising the anchors now is definitely too late. Havel, go deal with the anchors! He gives a quick nod and dives straight into the deep sea. I throw out our little buddy, ordering him to bite through the ropes tying the sailboats to the stone statue. Down on the seafloor, Havel unleashes his explosive slash, cutting the dropped anchors one by one. But the Gigot Titan is just too fast. It's already right under the mermaid statue. It bursts out of the water, smashing the newly built bronze statue in half with one single strike. At the same time, the shockwave from the impact completely flips over all the ships that didn't evacuate in time. Right then, Havel uses the recoil from his explosive skill to launch himself out of the ocean, catching me flawlessly in midair. Meanwhile, half of the mermaid statue is sent flying right into the city. Debris is raining down everywhere, and there are still a ton of people stranded at sea waiting for rescue. I immediately summon Little Hama. He swallows them all in one massive gulp, people, seawater, and all. and quickly spits them out safely on the shore. Suddenly, Harville calls out a warning. Young master, the Gigot Titan is charging straight into the city. But then, Harville notices I'm walking in the exact opposite direction. Young master, where are you going? I turn around and frantically yell, we need to run the other way, you idiot! Are you planning to fight that kind of monster? Are you out of your mind? Harville is absolutely stunned. Are you planning to just turn a blind eye to people in mortal danger? I shout back that we came here to make money, not to play hero and defeat monsters. The city has its own army and cannons, they'll figure it out themselves. Harville never expected this. The young master who previously used his brilliance in a crisis, who showed a never-give-up attitude, who would never just sit back and watch his people suffer, is actually making this choice right now. I tell him I've got enough on my plate already, why should I protect someone else's city? Running for our lives is the only logical move. Suddenly, the system chimes. Harville's affection for you has decreased by 5 points. Then, he flat out says he can't do it. After all, Harville is a guy who practically worships absolute justice. There is no way he could just leave innocent people to die. I roar at him that he's a terminal case of the bleeding heart. If you go, you might actually die. Harville doesn't even answer me. He steps onto his sword and rockets toward the city. Meanwhile, the city's cannon fire is completely useless against the Gigot Titan. It can't even put a dent in its defenses. Then, it spots the scattered upper half of the mermaid statue on the ground. It instantly charges at it like a total maniac. Right now, it has only one thought: destroy the mermaid. The giant lobster crushes countless houses under its legs, giving zero craps about the human lives underneath it. Just then, Harville arrives, sword in hand. He unleashes his explosive slash, hacking right into the giant lobster's leg. But to Harville's absolute shock, his full power strike just bounces right off. The furious giant lobster brings its massive claw slamming down, and Harville barely jumps out of the way. Next, the giant lobster blasts a shockwave of water from its gills. Still suspended in midair, Harville knows there's no way he can dodge this. He raises his sword, bracing himself to take the hit head on. The blast sends him flying backward for meters, only stopping when he crashes hard into a wall. Harville struggles to push himself up. He realizes he's completely outmatched by this thing. He might actually lose his life right here. But until every last civilian finds a safe shelter, he absolutely refuses to die. Meanwhile, I'm out at sea, paddling away on a piece of driftwood. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not some OP protagonist in a fantasy novel. Even if I do have a system, my skills are all for design and engineering. Even if I went back, what good would I be? I'm only human. Seeing the city's residents getting hurt one by one really tears me up inside too. But suddenly, I stop dead in my tracks. If I just run away like this and let the city get completely destroyed, they'll default on my construction payments. We're going back, Little Bell. Immediately, I hop onto the giant form of Little Bell and charge straight back toward the city. You bastard giant lobster, you're dead meat. Going toe-to-toe with this rampaging beast? Zero chance of winning. Looks like it's time to bust out that thing to turn the tide. Then, I hopped on my little buddy and had him head to that spot we talked about earlier. Harville, that thing already sees you as the biggest threat, so I need you to lure him over to the East Coast woods. Just 15 minutes ago, Count Kramer was regretting ever building that bronze mermaid statue. I told him back then that the statue might actually be useful. The only reason that monster came on land was to fight the mermaids to the death, so we could totally use its obsession against it. Back to the present, I figured the Count's side must be ready by now. After back-to-back battles, Harville's body was pretty much at its absolute limit. But for the people of this city, he had to pull off this bait mission. Seeing Harville run away, the lobster immediately gave chase like a total maniac. Harville kept running, fueled by nothing but sheer willpower. Suddenly, a voice rang out from ahead. It was me, bringing in the bronze mermaid statue tied up with ropes. I screamed right at it. You stupid lobster! Your real enemy has arrived. The second the lobster saw the statue, it let out a thunderous, furious roar. Harville, I'll create an opening. You find a chance to strike its belly. Harville yelled back. Next time. Can you explain the plan in advance? I told him there wouldn't be a next time for something like this. The lobster wasn't even looking at Harville anymore. It only had one thing on its mind, the mermaid. Harville chased from behind. Finding the perfect moment, he leapt into the air and poured every last drop of his magic into a strike right underneath the lobster. A massive explosion echoed through the entire forest, but the sight in front of him left Harville completely stunned. That strike only shattered the outer shell, but Harville's magic was already completely drained. Forget launching another attack, he was starting to lose consciousness. Suddenly my voice rang out, Harville, you did it! Leave the rest to me. Hearing that, he finally closed his eyes in peace. Lil Hama smoothly caught the falling Harville. Now, even though I talked a big game, honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. Before coming back, a few of the plans I cooked up did require me to attack. Sure, I know Harville's Asrahan technique, but to use the blast skill, you need a 3-ring mana heart, and I was only at the 2-ring level. So I dumped my remaining 1,901 RP into upgrading the Asrahan technique. But even after burning all my RP, I was still 59 points short of the 3rd ring, meaning, right now, I had absolutely zero ways to attack. Back to the present, I told my little buddy, now's the time. Using the momentum from a sudden stop, I launched myself toward the lobster's ruined belly. Even though I clearly didn't have an attack, I chose to hang on here because I wanted to make a bet. I wanted to see if I could just stab right into it with a mana-loaded iron shovel. Suddenly, Harville, whose eyes were already shut, seemed to feel something, and miraculously peeked open a knot. Instantly, a system prompt chimed. Harville's affection for you has increased by 5. Successfully obtained 80 RP. And with that sudden 80 RP, my Asrahan technique successfully evolved to the 3rd ring. I used one ring to protect my heart, then smashed the remaining 2 rings together, unleashing the Azrahan technique's signature blast. Die, you bastard! But the lobster was thrashing around, smashing rock after rock and kicking up countless stones. One of them shot straight up into the air, and by pure coincidence, smacked right into my head. My mind instantly went blank. The hand keeping me hanging onto the lobster just let go. Now I only had one shot at this. I had to blow it up in a single strike. Guess I can't use a mana ring to protect my heart anymore. No time to hesitate. I fired off a life-risking triple blast. The massive explosion tore the giant lobster apart like a collapsing line of dominoes, leaving it completely lifeless. A moment later, Havel was woken up by his 3 phantom buddies. The first thing he saw was the dead lobster. The young master actually kept his word. Suddenly, my little buddy started tugging frantically at Havel's finger. What's wrong? Do you want me to follow you? The 3 little guys led the way, looking incredibly worried, like they were about to burst into tears. Havel stumbled along behind them. Suddenly, the sight in front of him filled him with absolute terror, because he saw the young master, lying completely lifeless on the ground. Seeing this, Havel rushed over to listen for a heartbeat, but after checking, it was like his soul left his body. The heartbeat had actually stopped. Havel stared in sheer disbelief. He grabbed the young master's hand. No, you can't just die like this. The people of the territory are waiting for you, and I finally found myself a new home. Suddenly, Havel noticed something. He quickly reached out to check, and to his amazement, there was still a pulse, but the heart had clearly stopped beating. How was that even possible? Havel closed his eyes to sense it. He had no idea what was going on inside the young master's body, because those 3 mana rings were spinning at an unbelievable speed. Even though he couldn't get a clear read on the heart's condition, one thing was certain. That intense, swirling magic was acting as a heart, keeping the young master alive.